Welcome to Google Apps Script Made Easy. In this video, I'm going to show you how to quickly and simply grab a value from a cell and also set the value from a cell. So I have a sheet in front of me here and we just have some dummy data A, B, and C, but I'm also going to open a new sheet here. You can just type sheet.new into your URL bar. Got a brand new spreadsheet, and in this one, I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3 because there are two different ways to connect to spreadsheets. Both have their use cases, and it's very important that you understand both of them if you are going to become an Apps Script wizard. Okay, so taking our ABC sheet, let's go ahead and do extensions and Apps Script. And this is going to make what's called a bound script. Google knows that this script here is bound to this sheet because this is where it originated from, right? You went to extensions on this sheet, created a new app script, so it is bound to this sheet, which gives you a little bit more functionality, lets you do some cool things like on-change triggers and makes the syntax a little bit simpler. However, you can also connect to external sheets, this 1, 2, 3 sheet, where I didn't do the extension app script. I can still connect to it, still pull and push data, and I'll show you how to do both. Okay, so worrying first with our bound sheet here, the ABC sheet, let's go ahead and create some variables here. So we want to store the spreadsheet itself, and we'll shorten that to SS for spreadsheet. And we're going to set that equal to the spreadsheet app, the global object in Google Apps Script that lets you connect to sheets. And we're going to get active spreadsheet. Okay. So now we know that the SS variable contains our spreadsheet object. We're going to go further here and grab the sheet, right? Because spreadsheets are made up of potentially multiple sheets, right? Sheet 1, sheet 2. So we have to explicitly say which sheet we are trying to connect to here. So we'll say constant variable sheet is equal to, we're going to, a little typo there, const sheet is equal to SS dot, we're going to get active sheet. And there's some nuance to that I'm going to get to later in the video, but for now, this is fine. We'll get the active sheet. Okay, so we're getting the active spreadsheet, which of course is the one where we did extensions app script, and we are getting the sheet, which is going to be our active sheet, which right now, whoops, I'm going to go back to our thing here, is sheet 1. This is the active sheet. Okay, so let's say we want to manipulate a cell. Perhaps we want to grab the value of cell A1, which is A. Let's go ahead and do that. We can do const cell A1 is going to equal, we are calling sheet, which we just set up in line 4 here. We have the sheet object stored, and there's a method we can call on that called get range, okay? And now within this, you're going to pass the cell you want to grab. So we'll say A1, right? Simple enough. We wanted to grab cell A1. We're passing that in. Now let's see what happens if we logger.log cell A1. And logger.log is just a way to post data to your execution log when you run your script. So I'll save, and then I'll run this script. Let's see what happens. Authorization required. When you're connecting to really anything in your drive, you have to give express permission first to give the app script permission to interact with that drive value. So we go to advanced here, and then you're going to want to go to untitled project. We can title our project later, no worries. Authorization successful, there we go. And what did we log to our execution log? Range, right? Just an object, can't do much with that. We wanted to pull the value here. And the reason for that is there is a further method you have to add, and this is what trips a lot of people up. They think, well, I'm getting the range right here. Why can't I get the value of that cell? Because there's actually an extra step. We will now make a new constant variable called cell A1 value. And we're going to set that equal to cell A1 dot get value. Boom. Okay, there it is. There's the get value method, which will actually pull the data within the cell. So let's go ahead and now, instead of logging cell A1, let's do cell A1 value. Save this and run it. Boom, we got A. Let's test this cell. Let me put some new junk data in here. Run the script again. Boom, look at that. We are now pulling data from the sheet. How cool is that? Now let's say we want to push some data, right? It's one thing to grab it, but course, not very useful if we're not pushing that data, not doing something with that data. Back in our project here, let's first go ahead and do some housekeeping and give this project a name, shall we? Manipulating cells, right? It's a fitting name. It's exactly what we're doing. So as we just showed, we got the value of cell A1 by calling the getValue method on the cell A1 variable that we set up. Well, if you want to set the value instead of get the value, you may have already guessed, we are going to call the setValue method. So let's go ahead and say cell A1 dot set value. There we go. And then you're going to pass in the value that you want to set. So we'll say, hello world, and perfect. Okay. Now, if we log cell A1 value, it's still going to be just the letter A because we set the value after we pulled it. So let's go ahead and change the order here. I'm going to first call set value, right? So we grab cell A1, we set its value, then we get its value, and then log that to the execution log. So let's go ahead and run this script and see what we get. What do you know? Hello world. And now for the real test, let's head over to the spreadsheet. Hello world, how cool is that? We can now pull and push data. However, as I mentioned, there's a catch. So if we look back at how we grabbed the sheet, we did get active sheet, right? And the problem there is if I'm over in sheet 2, this is now the active sheet. So if I run this script again, it pushed it over into my current active sheet, which is sheet 2. We want sheet 1, right? Or maybe you want sheet 3 or whatever you name your sheet. We want a specific sheet in a lot of instances. You don't just want the active sheet. So to get around that, instead of making sheet whatever the active sheet is, let's go ahead and do ss.getSheetByName. And then here you want to pass in the name of the sheet you want to manipulate. So we'll say sheet 1, right? And make sure you pass in the correct name. I've been there before where I misspell or something and I'm like, what's wrong with my code? Well, I didn't correctly spell the sheet name, or somebody went and changed the name of the sheet when you weren't paying attention. So just be very careful to get the sheet name exactly right here. So now let's go ahead and put this back to A. Let's just get rid of that completely. And now if I go ahead and run my function, even though, go to the right sheet here, even though I'm on sheet 2, right, it's still going to update sheet 1 because I am expressly saying sheet 1. And to demonstrate that, we'll do the same exact thing we did before. I'll head over to sheet 2. So this is now the active sheet, but that doesn't matter because we are saying sheet 1 no matter what. So staying on sheet 2, I'll run this. Let's go back. Look, sheet 2 is unchanged, and sure enough, sheet 1 went back to hello world. So just depending on your project, you may want to get the active sheet, or you may want to get sheet by name, right? I find myself more often than not doing get sheet by name. It just makes things a little more robust if people start adding sheets or messing around with your project. Okay, so I mentioned that this is how you interact with a bound sheet, right? This script and this sheet are best buddies. They are bound. I originated this project by going to extensions on this sheet. But wait, there's a whole separate spreadsheet. How would I manipulate this one? Remember this from the start of the video? It has 1, 2, and 3. What if I want to connect to this sheet, right? Well, good news is you can. Let's go ahead and show you how. So looking at our script currently, we store our spreadsheet by doing spreadsheetapp.getActiveSpreadsheet. And that's perfect if you want to work on your bound Google Sheet, right? The sheet that is bound to this script. But if you want to connect to an external sheet, one that is not bound, you're going to call a different method here. And before I call that, I actually want to add a new variable. We're going to call it ID. Now, every single sheet has its own ID, a unique identifier, and we want to pull that. And the way to do it is go to your URL bar, and it is between the edit and the D. So between these, there we go, forward slashes, we are going to grab that value right there. That is your unique identifier. Each one's different for each sheet. So you can see this one ends in 6UJ0, whereas the first one we worked on ends in A4BA. They're all unique. And this is a way to interact with a external sheet. And we're going to pass that ID as a string, which means between these opening and closing quotation marks, right? That is now stored in ID. Now, instead of doing get active spreadsheet, we are going to do open by ID. And then you're going to pass in the ID that you just stored. Okay, so going through this one more time from the top, we have our function here, right? The code that executes goes between the opening and closing curly braces. We store the ID of the sheet we want to connect to. In this case, it's our new 123 sheet. And then we open the spreadsheet by calling the spreadsheet app, the global object, dot open by ID. And then we pass that ID in there. So now this sheet with the 123 is stored in the spreadsheet object. And sheet, this will still work because we're calling the spreadsheet dot get sheet by name, sheet 1. And of course, it's still sheet 1, so that works. And now let's run this. This should do the exact same thing, but over in this sheet now. So I'll click run. Boom. And look at that. It's no longer a 1. It is now hello world 23. So there you go. We did it to a bound sheet. We did it to an unbound sheet. And that is how you connect to sheets and manipulate cells in AppScript. Before we say goodbye, if you found this fun and interesting and want to learn more about Google Apps Script, or if you didn't quite understand everything we did, for example, why did we put ID between quotation marks? Perfect. I have a course that walks you through everything you need to know about Google Apps Script and JavaScript, the programming language behind it. Even if you've never written a line of code in your entire life, I walk you through everything step by step. You code along with me, and we build some pretty cool projects because there's a lot more you can do with AppScript than just change some data in some cells. You can interact with your calendar. You can even pull and automatically respond to emails in Gmail. It's an amazing product. You can set up time triggers to have functions run at certain times of the day or in response to changes. For example, if I open up this sheet and put in some new data, you can have that trigger a whole function that does whatever you want it to do. Again, all of that is covered in this course. It's a great way to learn some new skills, juice up your resume, and have a lot of fun and build some functional stuff in the process, because there is a capstone project in here that builds a functional automated to-do list that even emails you in the morning with what tasks are due that day and what tasks are overdue. That link will be in the description, and I hope to see you there.